Would I be the butthole for suing my Dill? Edit, they aren't married, referring to her as Dill is just easier for the sake of storytelling. Our son and Dill, 26 have been together for 2 years and live together. We've always thought she a very nice girl and she seems to make my son happy, so no problem from us. Our son has his own law firm that he's currently trying to get started. We're very proud of him, and we're fortunate enough to help him with a startup loan. Dill works a retail job that she's very happy with. Some time ago husband and I were over at their apartment and we decided to order some food. Husband and I wanted to pay, and since Dill were ordering from her phone we gave her our card so she could draw the money from our account. We thought it goes without saying this was to draw an amount once, for the lunch. However, Dill apparently put our card into her Apple Pay, and have been using it since. We didn't notice for some months but recently saw withdrawals we didn't recognize. We had our accountant look into it, and he discovered that Dill has been using our card on her phone and that too, she spent around $17,000. We were quite shocked and called her up and asked why the hell she's been using our card. She got very defensive, tries to deny it and eventually said she was entitled to it, and why do we care since we haven't noticed her use over 4 months. We told her she needed to pay us back immediately or we'd report her actions for theft. She apparently doesn't have the money to pay us back. We've gone to our son and he's offered to pay us back even though he actually cannot afford to. This isn't about the money for us, but more about the fact that she's stolen a huge amount of money. While we are comfortable and it took us time to notice, we still recognize the seriousness of stealing $17,000. Our son has completely dismissed her behavior and excused it as her being stressed. She's taken no responsibility, and we're honestly wanting to go forward with a police report to teach her consequences to her actions. Would we be the butthole for doing this? Not the butthole. $17,000 in theft is $17,000 in theft. Inexcusable behavior on her part. Don't sue, just report her to the cops. Not the butthole. Your credit card will only reverse the charges if you file police report. Edit, your son should make certain he is on solid birth control. I do not see this marriage lasting. If he is a lawyer, how can he tolerate a wife who steals? Am I the butthole for how I responded to my sister pregnancy announcement? I, F, 18, have a sister F, 38, who we will call K for privacy reasons. K has 4 children with her husband, 3 F, female, 8, female, 2 11 F. K is a stay-at-home mom, and her husband works in air conditioning. K and her husband came over with their kids on his time off to tell us something. She said that they are pregnant with their 5th child. My mom was overjoyed. And I wasn't really paying attention. I was focusing on the TV. Then my sister says, "So what do you think about the news?" I said, "Cool, awesome." Then my sister says, "Just cool, you don't seem that excited for me?" And I said, "Well, what do you want me to do? Jump up and down and scream my head off? I can see if this was like your first child that you were expecting, like a first-time mother moment. You got 4 kids and on your 5th pregnancy by this time you get used to it. Was this baby really hard to conceive? Like, was it hard to like to get pregnant?" And Kay said, "No, it just happened. I took the test a week ago." And I said, "Okay then, so at a certain point after fine number 3 people reaction is not going to be that enthusiastic as if was you were expecting with your first." Kay said, "I thought you will be happy for me," and I was like, "I am, but it's not that expecting for me since you've been pregnant before." She got mad and left with her husband and kids and did not stay for dinner. My mom thinks I should apologize to Kay for not be excited about her pregnancy announcing. So Reddit, am I the butthole? Edit, I just want to clarify that this 5th baby was not a baby that was hard to conceive, or they had been trying and wanting a 5th baby. It just happened. Edit 2, I have been finically supporting her other kids, giving her money and food constantly and babysitting her kids so she can go out every weekend to hang out with friends. I did not add it to my original post because that was not what I was focusing on. I wanted opinions on my reaction to the announcement, not me finically supporting her kids. I could have added that, but I did not to go over the character limit. That's why I made an update on my profile. Sorry for the confusion. Not the butthole. I think it's weird people expect a big deal to be made of it. Cool, you had sex and now you're cooking baby number 5, whatever. Good Lord. Why is it such a terrible burden to be happy about the things that make someone you love happy? Are only firstborn children worth celebrating? Is a child less valuable because their mother doesn't struggle with infertility? You're NTA for not being overly effusive, but your speech about why this baby is no big deal to you puts you in you're the butthole territory. I'm going with not the butthole. You are 19, and they are on their 5th kid. Who would expect a teenager to be overly joyous at this point? You told her that you were happy and that it should have been good enough. I don't know why people think others should be jumping through the roof at this point. Especially, someone your age. Am I the butthole for regifting my boyfriend's Christmas present, $1,300 laptop, to my sister? I, 23 female, love my boyfriend, 24 male, and have been dating him for about 2 years. He has always been really supportive, and our relationship is great, so when it came time for Christmas, I wanted to get him something really special. He has been complaining about his laptop for a while and has expressed the desire to upgrade to a newer model. I decided I would surprise him with a brand new laptop for Christmas. I wanted to get him the best laptop I could, so for the weeks leading up to Christmas, when he'd complain about his laptop, I'd take these opportunities to casually ask him which laptop he liked, what he wanted in a new laptop, and so on. The main problem he had with his laptop was the speed. So, I thought it would be fitting to get him the same model that he had, MacBook Pro, just the latest version. Now, I'm not a tech person. I don't know the first thing about RAM, SSD, etc. I just assumed a $1,300 laptop would be more than enough for his needs. So I bought the laptop, without doing any more research into it. Christmas Day came and I gave my boyfriend the laptop. He was so excited, until he saw the specs. When he saw that the laptop had 8 GB of RAM, he was really disappointed because he couldn't get his work done on such a slow machine. He was adamant that he needed something with more RAM. This turned into a full-blown argument. I tried to explain to him that I had done my best and spent a lot of money on the laptop, so he should appreciate it, but he wasn't having it. He said he would rather return the laptop and get the one he wanted. At this point, I was really hurt and upset. I had gone out of my way to get him a really nice present, and I felt like he didn't appreciate it at all. Yes, I could return it, and get him the one he wanted, but I had already spent a lot of money. The fact that he wasn't even willing to give it a chance made me really frustrated. So long story short, I decided to regift the laptop to my sister, 19 female. She's a college student, and I know she could really use a laptop like this. I know it may sound selfish, but I didn't think it was fair that he didn't appreciate my gift, and I wanted to make sure the laptop went to someone that would actually appreciate it. My boyfriend is, to put it bluntly, pissed. He does not understand why I wouldn't just return it and get him the one he wanted and cannot believe I would do something so selfish when I know how much he needs a new laptop. I feel kind of bad, but at the same time, this wasn't cheap for me, and a little appreciation would have been nice. Am I the butthole? You're the butthole. Your boyfriend sounds like he was appreciative of your gift, but he needed a machine that can do what he needs it to. That's the risk of getting a laptop or something similar, cars etc., without the involvement of the person you're buying it for. The correct action would have been returning the laptop and allowing him to put the money towards a machine that fits his needs. Not to mention, once you gift something, it doesn't belong to you anymore. It was his laptop and you took it to gift to your sister. Soft, you're the butthole. You seem to be placing more importance on your own need to feel validated in your gift giving, rather than wanting to make sure your gift will actually be useful and appreciated. I can understand why you would feel hurt and disappointed that your gift didn't have the intended effect, especially after putting a lot of money into it, but the gift was intended to fill a specific need in your BF's life, and it doesn't meet that need. He shouldn't have to try to make do with inadequate equipment just because you spent a lot of money on it without doing further research. Since you knew you didn't have a lot of knowledge about what specifically he would need, a better idea may have been a gift card or money to put towards a laptop that he could pick out himself based on what he knows he needs and will use it for. Giving the laptop to your sister isn't the answer here. Put it another way. Imagine you drive a crappy old car to work. It's falling apart. You often complain to your boyfriend how crappy it is and how it barely gets you to your job, a 30-minute car ride away. Your boyfriend picks up on this and decides to surprise you for Christmas with a brand new bike. Sure, it's nice and very thoughtful, but it's not what you need to get to work. But just give it a chance. No, giving a bike the chance to be a car isn't realistic. It's just not the right gift. You're the butthole. You meant well, but your gift was not what he needed. You could have offered to return it and get a gift card to the computer shop so he could put the money towards something more expensive that fits his needs, but instead you threw a fit and gave it away. Think a little next time before you react. There's often another, more reasonable solution. Edit, thank you for the awards. I've never gotten awards before, so I might be gushing a little inside right now. Smile. You're the butthole. It sounds like your boyfriend was appreciative, but understandably disappointed when he realized the laptop wouldn't meet his needs. Instead of accepting that he actually knows which specs his work requires, you decided to argue with him that he was wrong about what he needs. You, who admittedly doesn't know the first thing about RAM, SSD, etc., and who bought the laptop without doing any more research into it. You could have easily saved the day by returning the laptop and letting him use the return value toward a laptop that meets his needs, but it sounds like you just let your ego get in the way. Am I the butthole for skipping New Year's Eve at my child-free sister's? Last week I hosted Christmas for my family. I, 33 male, have a 2-year with my wife. Every year it's at my sister, parents, or my house, and it rotates every year. One of us hosts Thanksgiving/Christmas/New Year's. In the last year my sister, who is vocally child-free, got a dog. I love my sister, but we are very much opposites. When I had my kid it changed our relationship a bit. She tolerates, her words, my son. She has never watched him, I've also never asked. My son is present at all family functions, this annoys my sister. My sister has turned into your classic dog mom. World revolves around the dog type. I do not own dogs, and really don't want to be around them. I don't want them in my house. Well, my sister wanted to bring her dog to Christmas, and I said no. It's well trained and overall okay for a dog, I just didn't want it at my house, or even my yard. She complied and left it alone but was not happy about and let me know that several times. The day before New Year's Eve, she told me kids weren't welcome at her house. I was taken back by this and asked why. She just said alcohol would be present, we all drink and family friends also come to this party, and just said it wouldn't be appropriate for a 2-year-old to be present. My wife and I had planned to only stay till 10 anyway and then would go home because of our kid. We reconsidered and opted to not go at all and respected my sister's wishes by keeping the kid at home. I let her know a half hour before the party started. Wife and I treated it like any other night, we didn't even stay up till midnight. By 11, I noticed missed calls from her, and didn't answer. Fell asleep while texts started coming in. Calling me an butthole. Calling me a dog hater. Saying it was rude I didn't come to the party. Said it was bullcrap that she got my kid a Christmas present but didn't get her dog anything. The list went on, she was clearly drunk. I tried to call her, she didn't answer and got a text, I'm not answering butthole. So am I the butthole here? Said it was bullcrap that she got my kid a Christmas present but didn't get her dog anything. I know this must have been super unpleasant to deal with, but it cracked me up. Your sister sounds difficult. Not the butthole. Not the butthole. I say this as a kid and dog lover. She was testing you and wanted you to protest when she said that her nephew wasn't welcome. You didn't take the bait and she ironically threw a toddler-sized tantrum. Good for you and your wife for not arguing, complying, and staying home. The only misstep is that you called her back, should have just ignored it. I would leave it alone, this is her problem not a you problem, and no, you didn't need to get her dog a gift. I rolled my eyes at that one. Lol. Not the butthole. I'll probably get some hate from some pet parents here, but kids and pets are just not the same. If you don't want the dog at your house, those are the rules. If her next move is to ban your child from her house, great, you never need to go there again. She can leave her dog home alone. You can't leave a 2-year-old home alone. Comparing a child and a pet is comparing apples and oranges. Not the butthole fact that your sister's text mentioned the dog and Christmas means that her no kid rule for New Year's was directly related to your no dog rule at Christmas. Am I the butthole for telling my sister it's not my fault she could never go to her dream school? The family dynamic is messy and complicated, so if there's any confusion, let me know. I'm the oldest out of my 4 siblings. Me, 43 male. Julia, 40 female. Kenzie, 27 female. Katie, 23 female. Julia doesn't play a part of this. She disowned the family and yeah. Our dad ran out on us and mom was busted for possession, among other crimes, when Katie and Kenzie were still very young, so they ended up in the custody of my grandma. If you ask them, they survived World War II, when it wasn't that bad. Our grandma was overly protective and tired having to take care of kids again. But nothing extreme. Her health rapidly declined in their early teen years. I was out of state, so I wasn't a physical caregiver. I was power of attorney, so I was a financial caregiver while they took care of the physical needs. Katie was going to drop out of high school. She barely graduated. This is important for the future. Once she graduated, her and Kenzie came to me. They said they wanted to put grandma in a home so Kenzie could take a manager position, and Katie wanted to get out of town, go to our state capital, take classes at a community college and transfer to their selective university. She said a teacher who knew her situation believed she had potential to get there and become something great. They said it wasn't possible when caring for grandma. I told them no. They've resented me since. Katie went to a community college in our town and flunked out right away. After Grandma died, she went back and has been doing alright. She fell into a depression after her boyfriend cheated on her. She was talking about it to Kenzie and myself and said the thing that hurt was the person he cheated with was beautiful, talented, and then she said his affair partner actually goes to her dream school. She said this girl was everything she should have in life, well-rounded high school experience, parents to support her, a great education, and now this girl had truly taken everything from her. Then she mentioned she should have been at that school, but she was wiping the ass of something who called her every name in the book for 2 more years longer than she should have. This isn't the first time she's been tipsy and made a passive-aggressive comment, so I told her, Katie, I'm not the reason you couldn't get into your dream school, you failed out right away from CC, and would have did the same thing there. You weren't ready and can't accept that. Kenzie told me I was an ass who didn't understand burnout. Am I the butthole? Update, guys, it seems I need to redirect you all. The question is not am I the ass for having them care for Grandma, it's not taking blame for Katie chasing a crazy dream and going to her dream school. I get it, I'm a jerk and selfish. Thanks. Now the real question, please. You're the butthole. Let me get this straight, you had the financial and legal power to find a way to get professional care for your grandmother, who was at that time unable even to toilet by herself. You chose, instead, to leave her in the hands of 2 untrained young adults. They had an extra job on top of their other jobs in education, a job they were not trained to do, a job that the 2 of them had to divide between themselves, 24 hours a day, so there was never any relief from being around somebody who calls them every name in the book. And you have the nerve to blame them for being so stressed out and tired that Katie flunked out of college? No wonder they resent you. You butthole. ETA, just read some of your replies. You left them to look after a heavy-bodied person with dementia. You left her in the hands of a couple of barely not kids. On the basis that before she developed dementia she would have recognized them. While you went off and did, whatever. How, precisely, were you a protective grandson? Of course you're the butthole. You were raised with 2 parents, and your teenage sisters were forced to be raised by an elderly woman who didn't want to watch them. And they were forced to physically care for her, while you held all financial power over them. And have the gall to say it wasn't that bad. Am I the butthole for sharing food with my coworker? I have this coworker who is about my daughter's age who rarely remembers to bring lunch to work, and when she does, it's usually chips or crackers or something, not real food. One time I offered her something my wife made, and she loved it, so my wife started making extra food for her for lunch. My wife is from a big Indian family and likes making lots of food, and she misses doing that now that most of our kids are grown. So she doesn't mind making the extra dishes. Anyway, one of my other coworkers, also a woman but closer to my age, said I'm being inappropriate in the workplace. She said it's not nice to share food with only one coworker, that it looks like I'm flirting and is making people uncomfortable. As I said, the coworker I'm giving food to is my daughter's age. Although she is very nice and friendly to me, we have nothing in common other than liking my wife's cooking and working in the same place, so I don't see how her interpretation is logical. She also said I should think about how all the people who don't get free food feel. That also makes no sense to me, because no one can afford to do something nice for everyone in the world. Also, if this other coworker wanted me to bring her some samosas, she could have just asked. Not the butthole. Your coworker wasn't invited to the sandbox once in elementary school and it has haunted her ever since. You're doing a very kind thing. Many of my coworkers are kiddos, compared to me, and I have fed them many times. I just cannot accept that they don't have food to eat during lunch or dinner. Not the butthole. The coworkers need to mind their own damned business. It has nothing to do with them. Keep doing what you guys want. Sounds like everyone who should have an opinion is happy. Great, now I want some samosas. Am I the butthole for making my neighbor move a car out of my assigned space at 1 a.m.? So, I live in a building where we have assigned parking spots. They give you a sticker with a number on it, I'm number 80, and you park in the spot with that number. Pretty simple. So, I always have guaranteed parking, unless they're doing some sort of maintenance on the lot. A bit ago they were redoing the surrounding streets and had to have all the people who live in the area and don't have a parking permit for a space moved to other areas, which is obviously inconvenient in a congested urban area, but in theory has no effect on me. I came home late one night at about 1 a.m. from a friend's house and there was a car in my spot. Now, the building has a giant sign up to let people know the lot is under contract with a tow company. I was about to call but noticed the car had a note in the window. Something like, "Don't have towed. Call 3034X. I called and a few minutes later one of my neighbors who would also have an assigned spot, came out. He politely explained that there were no spots on the street, so he offered his girlfriend mine. Which means he parked in his space and then was gentlemanly enough to offer something of someone else's to her. I let him know it is my spot, so he'd have to move. We had a brief argument about the late hour and how hard it would be for her to find a spot on the street. Not seeing how either of them having trouble finding parking on the street was any problem, I insisted he move, and he went to get the keys and got out of my spot. I ran into him in the hallway a few days later, at which point he looked at me and said, "Frick you. I don't think we're going to be friends." Am I the a-hole for asking him to get out of my spot even if it was 1 a.m. and all of the surrounding roads were under construction? Not the butthole. And you're nicer than me for even calling the number. I would have just called the tow company. I'm not tangling with an inconsiderate butthole at 1 in the morning. Not the butthole. He should have parked on the street and let his girlfriend use his spot. Not the butthole. I would recommend reporting the incident and his later behavior to your building management. Sounds like this guy might be trouble for you and anyone else who doesn't bend to his will. He held a grudge for several days and knows where you live and where you park. Just be safe and report it now. Next time, let the tow company handle the "don't tow me, bro." Notes. Not the butthole. If you can, I would, referring to him by his phone number since you don't know his parking spot nor his unit number, file a complaint with the building manager or HOA that you fear for your safety since this guy is obviously boiling upset with you, yelling "frick you" at you 4 days after he stole your reserved parking spot and then argued with you when you politely asked him to move at his request instead of towing it as was the rule. You are under no obligation to return home at a waking hour to alleviate a thief's pain. Besides, he could have picked his GF up knowing there were no parking spaces. He may have prior complaints, and this may be what they need to kick him out of the community. At the very least, it could help his next victim in the future. Am I the butthole for not staying with my friend during her panic attack? Last week me and a couple of friends decided that we wanted to do something for New Year's Eve. One of my friends, we'll call her A, suggested that we go clubbing. All of us are 21. I love going clubbing, I love being that environment. I know some people don't, and I was more than happy to go along with this plan. However, the problem is that whenever I go clubbing with A, she tends to have panic attacks within about 20 minutes of being there and I have to sit in the smoking area for most of the night. I didn't mind doing this the first couple of times, but after a while it gets to be not much fun at all. And I know she's not having fun either, but it's her choice to go to the club. I suggested instead that we could stay in as a group and drink and watch a movie or something instead, but A was insistent that we go out. Everyone else was totally fine with not going out as well. I messaged her privately a couple of days ago to ask if she was sure she wanted to go out and she said yes. I maybe slightly cruelly told her that if she had a panic attack then I wouldn't help her with it. It was her choice to go out and she needs to deal with it herself. I should also add that we live quite remotely. It takes about 35 minutes to get to the club that we were going to. Within half an hour, A was overwhelmed and asked if I would go outside with her. I reluctantly agreed and sat outside for about 20 minutes. I then asked if she wanted to go back inside and she asked if we could go home. I told her that I could order a taxi to take her home, but I wanted to stay. She didn't want to go home on her own, so she came back into the club with me. About 10 minutes later she started getting overwhelmed again. She asked me to go outside and I refused. She spent the rest of the night in the smoking area. I regularly went and checked on her, texted her throughout the night and offered to get her a taxi home. It's not a massive club, so she knew where we were at all times. Quite a few of our mutual friends were there, so there was a lot of people she could have gone to if she felt unsafe. She was relatively sober as well. I know she's really mad at me now, but I just couldn't handle going home that early or spending the night outside. Am I the butthole? Edit. A few people have asked why I'm normally the one who stays with her during her panic attacks. As someone who experiences them myself, I know how awful it can be to go through them alone, so as fed up as it is I am, I stick with her. But I believe there's a point where if you're forcing yourself into a situation which triggers you, then your friends have to take a step back. Not the butthole. She needs to address her mental health and take responsibility on her own, not expect you to be her emotional support animal. Not the butthole. She knows this situation is not one she is comfortable in and continues trying to make it work. You warned her of the consequences and suggested alternatives. It sounds like you started as a group? Why do you have to be the one to go with her? Where are the others? Having a mental health issue is not her fault, but it is her responsibility, not yours, to handle. Part of handling mental health issues is finding ways to deal with triggers, and ruining experiences for everyone else with her choices is not an acceptable response. Am I the butthole for refusing to proofread my brother's college applications and help him with anything related to college? I, 22 female, am a recent college graduate who has a younger brother, 18 male, currently applying to colleges. When filling out my college applications a couple years back, my parents roamed on my computer and found out I was a lesbian through my essays, leading to a lot of fights that still continues in my house today. However, I kept the essays and was admitted to a well-respected university, which I recently graduated from. When I told my mom a year later that she should be thankful I kept the essay for the reason I did, we fought again. However, my mom asked me to review my brother's essays last month, and she said both of them agreed to lie that he was gay on his essay to get him into a good university. Out of anger, I hung up and have not replied to any of her or his messages requesting help. I understand that my brother may actually be gay and closeted, but from what both of them told me, he wants to have better chances like I did. Seeing that made me upset, especially since I have faced a lot of trauma from my identity, whereas he is describing it as a ploy for admission. He has also asked me to help him with his FAFSA and guidance on other documents, but since they have reached out, I have not responded. Am I the butthole? Not the butthole. What a dickhole thing to do. I bet you actually got in on merit and not your sexuality, and your parents seem pretty dense if they thought a gay person somehow had an upper hand in life. Historically, not the case. Not the butthole. Keep your parents out of this if they refuse to understand. Talk with your brother privately and explain why this is wrong/unethical, and that you'd be more open to helping him if he is honest in his application. Not the butthole. Would strengthen your not the butthole case even further if you offered to help him with his application on the prerequisite that he doesn't use the fake gay approach, except for if he's actually living it. Am I the butthole for how I reacted to a mother with a lap baby on a plane? For context, I'm a pretty well-traveled person. I fly a lot and have had a lot of inconvenient travel experiences, but this one takes the cake. I was flying across the US, approximately 5-hour flight, but I had to change my flight, not super last minute but a couple days before, so I didn't get the most ideal seat, but at least it wasn't a middle seat. I ended up sitting next to a couple, with a lap infant, with what I would guess is a 1-year-old, who was, thankfully, quiet, but incredibly squirmy and active. She kept touching me and tapping my shoulder and face when all I was trying to do was sit in peace. I get that controlling babies is hard, but the kid was in the middle seat and the person sitting there, her partner, had the L seat. After a certain point, I'd had enough. I asked her to please keep her child from violating my personal space, and if that wasn't possible from the middle seat, could she please have her child sit on her partner's lap? She responded with words I can't post here and called the flight attendant about it, who actually ended up finding me a new seat instead. At baggage claim, she and her partner jerked me out, but I seriously don't understand what I did wrong here. Am I the butthole? Not the butthole. The baby is the center of their universe. You were not honored by its touch. Not the butthole. Parents may not have it easy, but it's still their responsibility to keep their kids to themselves and not touching strangers. What if you had been some big jerk that smacked the kid for touching you? You never know how people will react. You need to keep your kids safe and in the process keep your seat neighbors happy. Duh. As someone with a baby, I don't know how dirty you are either, so why would I want my baby touching you? This is just weird. Am I the butthole for making my nephew cry for leaving service dog tied up at theme park? The cast: me, Evie, age 28, fiancé, Daniel, age 32, service dog, Maddie, age 6.5, nephew, Nathan, age 19. Details to start: as my fiancé has a service dog for his epilepsy, he has seizures that, thanks to medication, have gotten better and are almost on a schedule, 2-week gaps. He's had this service dog for 6 years now, a lab named Maddie. We take her everywhere as his are caused by stress, so can be caused from a stressful situation too. Because of his health, his family never took him to a theme park, and so I brought it up. However, we didn't want to leave Maddie behind, and you obviously can't take a dog on the rides. He has a nephew who's had it rough this year. As a late Christmas gift, we asked Nathan to come with on 2 conditions. 1, I will pay for tickets, hotel, and gas act. But he must have his own play money for food and gifts. 2, we all take turns going on rides so that someone is with Maddie at all times. Nathan the nephew agreed. We have been here for 3 hours, and Daniel, my fiancé, myself wanted to get on a ride. Well, we did, but when we got off we found strangers holding Maddie asking about what to do with her. Daniel and myself got Maddie back, and people lectured us for leaving a poor dog tied up who only wants to work. We didn't. My nephew had tied her to a fence that keeps you away from the ride. We walked around, couldn't find nephew. Called him, his phone was off. I was livid. Daniel started showing episode signs because he was stressed out. We searched for 30 minutes. Before I left, Maddie with a worker looked by myself. I found nephew getting off a ride. When I called out to him, he ran off. Once I caught him, I flipped. Nathan's excuse was, I'm a kid. I want to have fun. I deserve a break too. I never got this, I never did. I didn't get a dad, and mom never did nothing. I want to be a kid. Daniel's like a dad. He gave me this opportunity. I couldn't hear the rest because his sobs slurred it too much. But he doesn't have a father, never did, as the father left before he was born. I tried talking it out with him, but he kept telling me it wasn't his fault, and crying. I reminded him that I was giving this opportunity, not Daniel. To elaborate, we did all switch who watched Maddie. Since Nathan was young, I had already taken his turn a few times so that the boys could have fun. But he left Maddie. Again, a service dog. Not only life-altering but expensive. I told Nathan that if he didn't watch Maddie, I would drive him home, drop him off. He flipped. He cried, ran off again. I didn't go after him, and returned to Daniel to find out from a worker they moved him and he had a seizure in a back area. He loves his nephew, and was worried. Am I the idiot for not letting him be a kid? He seemed really upset. He has had a hard life, and is under a lot of pressure at home with watching younger siblings. Not the butthole. At 19 he is an adult and not a child. You gave him fair rules for a free, fun day out and he agreed to the rules. He had a great opportunity and he blew it. Not the butthole, he's 19 years old. He could be serving in combat and instead he's crying because he had to sit out on a third of the rides on this free trip to help his uncle and take care of a living service animal. What a joke. Am I the butthole for saying Mill needs to break her agreement with her husband, because I am sick of him being rude to my kids? When Mill met her current husband, Owen, she was on a plane and just assumed she would never see him again, so she lied about having kids. Owen was staunchly child-free and kids were an instant deal breaker. She actually had 3 who were teens at the time. Mill claims she was just depressed, thought she would never see him again, and wanted to pretend for a little while to have a different life. They spent a few days together and then she went home, but they ended up talking on the phone all the time and eventually he wanted to date and she had to come clean that she was married with 3 kids. Obviously Owen thought she was an absolute psycho, but Mill eventually wore him down and he agreed to give it a try, but only because she promised the kids would never be his problem and he wouldn't have to have anything to do with them. Owen and Mill got married and he just pretends her family doesn't exist. We see him occasionally and he comes to holidays, but he doesn't speak to any of us or acknowledge us. She won't babysit her grandkids because it wouldn't be fair to Owen to have them in the house. We once even went on a vacation together and he just doesn't speak to us. Everyone tolerates it because Mill is really happy and she is a nightmare to deal with when she isn't happy. Anyway, my kids are getting old enough to notice that he ignores all of us. I am worried it will hurt their self-esteem or they will internalize bad behavior. I confronted my husband but he said to leave it alone as he feels Owen is nothing to us and who cares if he talks to us. I was still bothered so I brought to Mill and Owen. Owen said he doesn't see why he should have to go back on something she agreed to. Mill got upset and said I was being selfish and demanding, and to just leave Owen alone. I said it isn't fair to my kids and I am sick of being disrespected. Today I refused to go to her typical New Year's brunch and stayed home with the kids instead. My husband is pretty annoyed and says I am making drama for no reason, and apparently Mill is furious and feels I am being insensitive. Not the butthole. You don't need to be around Owen. Your kids don't need to be around Owen. Mill doesn't need to bring Owen to _family gatherings. Owen doesn't want to be part of the family, so you're entirely justified leaving him out of any family happenings. Not the butthole. What you're doing comes down to this: you are not required to set you or your children up for Owen to be rude to you. Being welcoming to guests in your home does not mean that they, or their children, are your problem, in any meaningful way, so Owen is taking your Mill's promise, which was batcrap in the first place, to a strange and distant land by not speaking to people when they come to holidays. Your Mill made a promise to Owen, but you did not. You did not agree to have an ogre travel with you on family vacations. You did not agree that every Christmas morning would involve some dude trying to pretend there were no children on the premises. You did not agree to continue going to Mill's house an infinite number of times so that you could be made to feel incredibly awkward there. Your Mill's, again, completely batcrap, promise has certain costs to keep. One of those costs probably should that your Mill's children and grandchildren will not be hanging out at her house, coming to holidays, or inviting her massively unpleasant partner to their homes. That is what your Mill chose when she chose Owen. If Owen wants to be left alone, fine, but being left alone is not a thing that comes with dinner invitations. I don't get why your husband is okay with this situation, It must have really sucked to have your mom decide that her happiness rested on being able to pretend you didn't exist. You are not making drama for no reason. The drama has always been here, and it has been freaking thoroughly repressed by the people at Drama Ground Zero. You were about a mile away from Ground Zero, and your sense of self was not vaporized, so. This is a totally reasonable quantity of drama. Mill has been creating misery for years, she's just upset now because there is a consequence. Not the butthole. He thought she was a psycho? Why does he keep showing up to strangers' holidays and sitting there in silence? Am I the butthole for closing the door on a man in a wheelchair? A few days ago I was entering a gas station and behind me a man was coming in too. He was in a wheelchair. Now when I'm entering or leaving a place, if someone's behind me I always keep the door open, and if it's more than one person I step aside to let them all through. So I see the man in the wheelchair behind me and I notice with how narrow the door is he would need more room. So I stepped aside and held the door open so he'd have room to enter. Instead of just going through, the man stops and looks up at me, giving me a death glare. Then he proceeded to yell at me, telling me I don't need you, insert curse, help. Clearly taken aback, I just stand there frozen for a moment and he starts coming, while I still had the door open. Well, he didn't need my help, so I just let the door go and let it close in his face. He then starts cursing more as I make my way in while he gets the door open himself. Am I the butthole for doing this? Not the butthole, he got exactly what he asked for. I'm sorry you got berated by a stranger while trying to be considerate. Hope your day gets better. Not the butthole, I really don't understand why some disabled people get so bent out of shape for something as normal as holding the door for them. 99% of the people who are holding the door aren't doing it because you're disabled, they're doing it because they were taught to hold the door for other people coming in that are near you because it's the polite thing to do. Everyone should know this because it's so common in society, but it's like disabled people don't know that's a courteous thing to do and just assume it's done out of pity or some other form on condescending attitude. Am I the butthole for robbing my brother of his full inheritance? My brother Ben, 35, is spoiled. Mum favored him over us girls. He always got what he wanted, or he threw tantrums, even at my sister's funeral. She was 16. Ben 14, me 11. My dad has 2 brothers and 1 sister. When my uncle was 22, he came out as gay. My grandparents, GPs, were shocked, but they loved and accepted him for who he was. My dad married my mum and with my uncle, did lots together. To us he was the fun uncle. My aunt and other uncle married their partners, but they were always critical of my other uncle because of his life choices. My GPs held the family together, but in 2016, they both died within 9 months of each other. My aunt and uncle disowned my gay uncle. He was upset, but he and my dad have always been close, so we became his only family. In 2019, my uncle was diagnosed with lung cancer. He rewrote his will and asked my brother to be executor because dad wasn't coping with him being sick. Ben accepted as he believed that my uncle would split everything between him and myself. My uncle died in May 2021. My dad, my uncle's boyfriend, and I were with him. I called and messaged my brother repeatedly, but he didn't answer or come to say goodbye. At the funeral, Dad was a mess, but my brother was giddy. A couple of weeks of my brother pestering my dad to find the will later, we looked in my uncle's safe. Dad unlocked it and Ben grabbed the paperwork. Soon after, he swiped everything off my uncle's desk, swore, yelled and stormed out. Later I found the will and my uncle had split his estate 4 ways. 1/4 each to my brother, myself, my uncle's boyfriend and cancer research. Ben was angry because he only got 1/4. He contested the will. He claimed that he only accepted the job of executor because he was promised half. He believed he should get half and the other half should be split 3 ways. It went to court in October 2022. I testified, and when asked if my brother should get half of the estate because of all the work he had to do, I said no. I said my dad and I had done more than my brother helping my uncle simplify his affairs prior to his death, and that my uncle was a deliberate man, and we should respect his wishes. Ben was livid but still thought he would win. He didn't. Early December I was notified that Ben got 1/4 minus costs, and the rest of us got 1/4 each. He went nuts demanding I compensate him because I cost him his money. My mother blew up my phone with how could I do this to her baby, and relatives are telling me I did the wrong thing. Mom banned me from Christmas. My parents divorced when I was 16, because of my poor behavior, and told everyone I refused to come after what I did. Ben had a night party and my sil sent me a message saying sorry with a picture of my photo on Ben's dartboard and a sign telling his guests to throw darts at me and to message my number and tell me I'm an ah. I only got 2 messages from his friends, so I don't think I am, but read it. Am I the butthole? Not the butthole. Your brother took an unwinnable case to court and he lost. The fact that you got asked on stand what is fair is really weird and doesn't really have anything to do with the case. Your brother lost because he took a stupid case to court, you didn't do anything. Are you sure your mom knows the same story that you tell us here? Because from what you say here there is nothing you did. Are you sure that your brother doesn't have a different version of events? Not the butthole. Go no contact with both your brother and your mother. They are not worth the heartbreak. Your mother was okay with you getting 1/8 while your brother wanted half, so she can deal with getting 1/8 of your care as well. Am I the butthole for telling my wife I won't get a job and she needs to get another job? My wife is a teacher and refuses to work over breaks. She's 32 and I'm 31, we're both women. We live in a high cost of living city. We need to live in the city for her job because of the union rules. I work from home about 40 to 45 hours a week at my main job, then I work about 10 to 15 hours a week at a part-time job outside the home. I also help my brother with his business, which is usually only about 4 or so hours a week, but he pays me. Recently we've needed to adjust our budget a lot because of rising costs. We're trying to afford to put down a down payment on a condo in the city closer to her school, which is in a richer neighborhood. We both have loans and medical issues that take up a lot of our budget. Our rent is going up and something has to give. Her commute is already about an hour each way. Because I work from home and my part-time job is close and only 10 to 15 hours a week, she wants me to get another job. My brother can't offer me any more work than he's giving me. I told her absolutely not and she needs to work over the summer and winter breaks instead. She blew up at me and says her job is extremely difficult and I don't understand how much she needs the summer and winter off. I know that her job is tough, but she is claiming she needs the summer break otherwise she will get burnt out and depressed. I am already burnt out and depressed working so much and now she wants me to do even more. Some of my friends are saying I'm the butthole because being a teacher is much harder than the jobs I have. Some of my friends are saying she's the butthole because I'm already working multiple jobs and she gets the summer and winter off. Am I the butthole for telling my wife I won't get a job and she needs to get another job? Not the butthole. You work up to 64 hours a week and she thinks you need a third job? Not the butthole. You are working 54 to 64 hours a week. Teaching is certainly a more than 40 hours/week occupation. I am married to one, however, there is no reason that she cannot pick up a part-time summer job that is something she genuinely enjoys. A baker, Uber, part-time editing from home. The options are endless and surely there is something within her interests that will not be adding a lot of stress because it's not teaching over the summer. She's the off for insisting that you work more than her and using her job as a reason for why that should be. Would she be willing to compromise on a smaller apartment? If not, then she needs to look at ways to contribute to keep what you've got/get what you want. Not the butthole. You clearly don't have time for yet another job, that's utterly ridiculous. I also get that teachers need their breaks, but making you work more is not the solution. Not the butthole. There are only a few options here. Give up on saving, and spend into debt, change jobs, one or both, get extra work. She works long hours most of the year. You work long hours all year. Something does have to give. And suggesting supplemental income over summer break is not a catastrophe. It's a suggestion. I guess brainstorm all the options with no censor, then stack rank the best to worst. None of them sound best. I'm sorry you're both facing that. Am I the butthole for telling my sister not to use skin cream before my wedding? My fiancé doesn't like skin brightening cream. She never uses it, but she also doesn't usually say anything about other people using it either. So I was surprised when she told me she didn't want my sister to use it for our wedding and asked me to convey the message. My sister always uses skin brightening cream for any big event, especially if she will be photographed. So I know she is planning on doing so for our wedding. My fiancé said she hates skin brightening cream and doesn't want the use of it immortalized in our wedding photos. She said my sister should understand because this is a small family event and the photos will only be seen by us and our close family. She said it's not unusual for brides to have requests about the look of the wedding party. She would know better than me, so I agreed. Asking my sister didn't go over well. My sister was furious and said I have no say over her skincare routine. She said she will use whatever products she wants, and if my fiancé has a problem with that she can uninvite her. My fiancé said fine, but then my sister won't be a part of the wedding party or in the photos. My mom and sister are furious about this decision and don't want to work with me at all, telling me to get my wife under control, because she's being ridiculous. I would think my sister would want to make us happy on our special day and be willing to compromise, but did I ask for too much? Edit, after talking to my fiancé we've decided to just uninvite my sister. Her beliefs are her own and not really any of our business, but why would we want someone who thinks women who look like my fiancé are ugly to be at our wedding? It just doesn't make sense. I always saw it as a personal choice, but it's more than that. My sister is saying to the world that she thinks brown women are ugly, and while that's sad for her, because she is one, it isn't my fiancé's problem to deal with. So we just won't have her there. No one should have to be told on their wedding day that they are ugly. Clarification: several people have asked me to explain in the post itself what skin brightening cream does, since a lot of commenters are white and don't know. The cream changes your skin so that you look fair, more like a white person than a brown one. It isn't makeup. It fades over time, so you need to keep applying it, and it can make you sick. The reason my fiancée hates it is because she has seen it give friends and relatives skin conditions and other illnesses, and because women who use it say women who don't are ugly. My fiancée thinks we should be proud of our brown skin, because our race has accomplished many things. That is why she didn't want its obvious use in our photos. Several people have told me the proper name is skin lightening cream, but in our community we call it skin brightening cream. Apparently white people have a different product also called that, which is different. Sorry for confusing you. You're the butthole in this, but it's our special day excuse is just annoying. Yes, it's your day, but that doesn't give you the right to tell others what they do with their own body. Edit: yes, I have realized the cream is controversial, but my ruling still stands. You cannot or should not tell people what to do with their own body. It may be your day, but it's not your decision what somebody does with their body. I think you need to make it really clear that when you're saying a skin brightening cream that you mean a fairness cream. I think that really changes the concept because it involves colorism/racism. I hope you don't mind me asking, but are you South Asian? I am, and I know the craze around fairness creams like Fair and Lovely and the culture surrounding lightening your skin is poignant and gross. I see why it makes your wife uncomfortable to have people bleach their skin around her, generally, but especially if she is of a darker skin tone herself. With the context, I think not the butthole. You're the butthole. Your fiancé sounds incredibly unreasonable and controlling. Here. Is this the only thing she has been like this over? Assuming your sister isn't painting her face like a straight-up clown, it's none of your fiancé's business what she puts on her skin. The amount of insecurity it takes to not want to be outshone in photos is incredible. You need to spend some time reflecting on whether you want to deal with this long term. Okay, so to be clear, your fiancé hates the cream because it promotes whiter skin as a beauty standard? Personally, I've not heard a lot about this type of cream, but my friends from India have told me about its prominence over there. On one hand, I can understand your fiancé hating a toxic part of the beauty industry, but on the other, she cannot control what other people use for their makeup. You asked and your sister refused. If you want to keep your bond with your family, you have to let the issue go. I'm going to treat this as any other moral choice, e.g. veganism. It's one thing to choose a life for yourself and another to force it on others. Am I the butthole for snapping at my mill? Few quick things: she's 50s F, not technically my mill as my BF, 27M, John, and I, 24 female, are not married but have been dating for 4 years. Also, English is not my first language, so please try to ignore any grammatical errors. I am also incredibly hungover. Anyways, both him and his sister moved from the US to escape from his mother, and now he has low contact with her, and that's only so that he can see his dad. I genuinely don't know how a man as sweet and caring as John could be related to an absolute harpy like his mother, or what his father sees in her. From the moment I met her, she has hated me and made sure I knew that she hates me. Between snide remarks and picking apart my appearance, I have tried to bear with it for John's sake. He's told me multiple times that I don't need to interact with her and that he understands if I'm not up to his monthly Zoom calls with his parents. This year we spent Christmas in the US with his family. John told me that while he wouldn't force me to go, he really wanted me there for emotional support, since this would be his first Christmas with her in 7 years. His family also wanted to finally meet me in person, and in the end I agreed. On Christmas Eve we went to his uncle's house and had a lovely time, since his mom was on her best behavior and kept her general unpleasantness to a minimum. Then came Christmas Day, and after dinner we had some drinks. It did not take long for his mother to get both drunk and verbally belligerent. In her tirade she mainly focused on me, how I'm a tramp who shouldn't be anywhere near her son. But towards the end she stopped for a second, stared at John, and then said that he was a disappointment, a failure, and some other choice words I'd rather not repeat. At that point he just got up and left the room. Before I went to check on him, I snapped at her and told her that she's the failure. All of her kids moved across an ocean to get away from her, and the only reason that we're even here is because he loves his father more than he hates her. I didn't stay there to see her reaction, but after calming John down we heard his mother screaming and crying downstairs. After jumping out the window we got a hotel and stayed there until our flight back home. Now his entire family is sending us angry messages since his mom has been a wreck after. John backs me completely and says all I did was tell her the truth, and while he's upset that this has caused a total earfrick of a crapstorm with his family, he isn't upset with me and knows that it sucked having to deal with her. But when I asked a few friends, they said I shouldn't have been so harsh since I knew she would retaliate. Whilst there will no doubt be some people who think you should have risen above it, I'm not one of them. Firstly, she was absolutely vile to you. You held your head high and let it roll over you. Then, she made a grown man, the love of your life, cry. Personally, I think you did very well indeed. You had to quite literally jump out of a window to escape. This mill fricked around and found out. Not the butthole. Not the butthole. She deserved every single word of it and more. Tell John to telephone everyone's single relative who is sending him abusive messages. Sounds like they need to hear some home truths about the mill.